Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and realizing that calendars no longer exist. No dates, no birthdays, no New Year's celebrations, no reminders telling you that you're getting older. Now imagine someone walking up to you and asking a very simple question. How old are you? What would you say? Today, answering that question is easy. We know the exact day, month, and year we were born. We can calculate our age down to the very second if we want to. But for most of human history, things were very different. Thousands of years ago, people had no calendars hanging on their walls. There were no birth certificates, there were no clocks, no watches, no smartphones, and no government records keeping track of when someone was born. So how did people know their age? The surprising answer is that many of them didn't, at least not in the way we do today. For early humans, survival was far more important than counting birthdays. Imagine living 10,000 years ago. Your day would be filled with finding food, searching for water, avoiding predators, building shelter, and protecting your family. In that world, knowing whether you were exactly 23 years old or 24 years old had very little value. What mattered was whether you were strong enough to hunt, old enough to help your group, or experienced enough to lead. Instead of measuring life with numbers, people measured life with events. A person might remember being born around the time of a massive flood. Another might remember being born shortly before a famous hunt. Someone else might say they were born during a harsh winter that lasted longer than usual. These events acted like natural timestamps. When people wanted to estimate their age, they would connect their memories to important moments that everyone in the community remembered. Think about it this way. Imagine if everyone today suddenly forgot the calendar. Years later, you might describe your age by saying, I was born a few years before the COVID pandemic, or I was born during the year that country won the World Cup. You wouldn't know the exact number of years, but you would still have a rough idea. Ancient humans used a similar method. Nature also helped people keep track of time. Long before calendars existed, humans noticed repeating patterns. The sun rose and set, the moon changed shape, the seasons came and went, animals migrated, plants grew and died. Year after year, these cycles repeated themselves. People quickly learned that they could use these natural patterns to estimate the passage of time. Some groups counted winters, others counted rainy seasons, others tracked harvests. Instead of saying, I am 20 years old, when a person might say, I have seen 20 winters. This wasn't perfectly accurate, but it was often good enough. Interestingly, many ancient societies didn't care much about exact ages. Today, age affects almost everything: school, jobs, driving, voting, retirement. But thousands of years ago, many communities focused more on life stages than exact numbers. A child was a child, an adult was an adult, an elder was an elder. The exact number in between often didn't matter. What mattered was what you could do. Could you hunt? Could you gather food? Could you protect your family? Could you teach younger members of the group? These questions were usually more important than knowing your precise age. As human societies became larger and more organized, however, things began to change. People started building villages. Villages became towns. Towns became cities. And cities eventually became civilizations. With larger populations came new challenges. Farmers needed to know the best times to plant crops. Leaders needed to organize festivals and ceremonies. Governments needed records. Merchants needed schedules. Suddenly, keeping track of time became much more important. This led to one of humanity's greatest inventions, the calendar. Many ancient civilizations created their own ways of tracking time. The ancient Egyptians were among the earliest. They closely observed the Nile River. Every year, the river flooded at roughly the same time. This predictable event became a natural way to mark the passing of years. The Egyptians also studied the stars. By watching the night sky, they developed one of the world's earliest calendar systems. Other civilizations did something similar. The Babylonians tracked the movements of the moon. The Maya created incredibly accurate calendars based on astronomy. The Chinese developed calendar systems thousands of years ago, and the Romans eventually created calendars that influence the ones we use today. As calendars became more common, recording births became easier. Families could remember when children were born. Governments could keep records. Religious institutions could track important dates. Slowly, the idea of an exact age became more common, but even then, many people still didn't know their precise age. In some parts of the world, this remained true until surprisingly recent times. Even today, there are people who don't know their exact birth date. In areas where official records are limited, people may estimate their age based on major historical events, natural disasters, or community memories. This shows just how recent our obsession with exact age really is. For most of history, age was not a precise number. It was an estimate, a story, a collection of memories tied to important moments. And perhaps that's a fascinating way to think about time. Today, we often measure our lives with numbers: how old we are, how many years we've worked, how many days until an event, how many months until a goal. But our ancestors often measured life differently. They measured it through experiences, through winters survived, through journeys completed, through children raised, through stories remembered. So the next time someone asks you how old you are, remember this. For most humans who have ever lived, that question would have been nearly impossible to answer. Because before calendars existed, your age wasn't written on a document. It wasn't stored in a database. It wasn't celebrated every year with candles and cake. Your age lived in your memories, in the changing seasons, in the stories your community told, and in the unforgettable events that shaped your life. Before calendars, people didn't count the years, they lived them.